This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Judith Felton, who is a very senior professor at Middlesex Community College. What do you profess, Judith? What are you professor of?
Oh, professor of Human Services and Psychology.
So, human services, what does that mean? What do you
Services,
teach?
The Human Services program educates and trains students who are going to go into the helping professions, primarily social work, counseling, psychology. So what I do is profess helping skills, counseling skills, the theories of psychology and sociology, and social work.
Now, do a lot of students come to the college already knowing that they want to go into your program, or is it mostly students who are here sort of looking for what they want to do next with their lives?
I think a lot of our students come to the program having a sense that this is what they want to do. They've been people who may have had experiences with the system before, may have had experiences with getting help, or may have been somebody who had always been the go-to person when someone else needed help. So I think a good majority of our students have come here saying, I want to help people. I want to do something. I don't want to be a nurse, but I want to help people. And so they have an idea that they have always wanted to be in the helping profession.
Now, the obvious kind of question, do you sometimes get a student who clearly is inappropriate for this kind of work?
Yeah, we do occasionally. I wouldn't say that's the norm. I would
hope
probably
not, yeah.
say that I can count on the fingers of one hand when that has happened. But occasionally there are times when people have had a sense that they really want to help people, but they haven't had sort of those skills of empathy and compassion that is necessary. And so I might think of other ways that they can help.
And do you still let them into the course, or how do you?
Usually that happens after they might have already been a student in human services, and this gets discovered through a counseling course, or it gets discovered through an internship, that this is really not the field for them.
I'm talking with Professor Judith Felton. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, and we'll be back momentarily. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Professor Judith Felton, who teaches social work, psychology, all kinds of other things too. I'm interested in how you got into this yourself. You went to college at a traditional age, right? And graduated in English, not in psych.
That's right. Actually, I was probably one of your non-traditional students. When I finally settled down, I was in my mid-20s. And
well, at my age, that sounds pretty traditional to me, but okay.
Mid to late. I was an older student comparatively to the other students at my undergrad school. I got into this in part. I had majored in English and thought that I wanted to follow in the footsteps of my own father, who was a writer. But I had a mother who was a political activist, and also at a very young age dragged me around to picket lines to fight for farm workers in Northern California. And I had
This was in California?
This was in California.
Okay.
I had the benefit of meeting Cesar Chavez, and she really was a helper from the get-go and an activist. And after I graduated with my undergraduate degree in English, I worked for the Department of Mental Health in Fitchburg, Massachusetts as their grants writer. And I had a mentor.
Now I've got to ask, what brings you from California to Fitchburg?
I followed a boy.
Oh, okay.
So, that's...
For more details,
yes, right,
talk
right.
to you
That's
privately.
Another radio
yes.
show, yes. And so, but my mentor at the Department of Mental Health felt that social work would be a good degree for me, for a graduate degree. So I followed his advice, and I'm very happy that I did.
So then you went to, where'd you go, Boston
University for their Graduate School of Social Work, and focused primarily on community organization and policy. So I sort of like my mother, I became very interested.
So you're just like the President of the United States. You're a community organizer.
I'm a community organizer, yeah. And then later on picked up more clinical skills, so that eventually I landed in medical social work, which I did, which I moonlighted as I was teaching.
So when did you start teaching?
I started teaching in part-time here at Middlesex in about 1991, and then full-time 1993.
So when did you, I'm not into the details, but when did you get your master's degree?
I got my master's degree around...
in the 80s?
Yeah, around 1984.
And before you came to Middlesex Community College, you were working in medical social
I was
work?
I was doing community organizing and some organizational development work.
This was in Boston,
This was
mostly?
in Boston, and
Tell us a bit about that.
well, I worked with a hospital in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, working with their employers on issues of managing change. I worked with the Digital Corporation when they were laying people off, and they called me in to work on working with employees while they were transitioning from employment to non-employment.
Wow.
I worked with
That's
the
hard,
Hispanic community in Fitchburg, Mass. They were doing some housing reorganization and finding housing, those kinds of things. I didn't do medical social work until I moved to Connecticut.
So you were working with people who were either unemployed or were about to become unemployed.
Yeah.
Has that helped you in your current work? Because obviously the unemployment rate is quite high.
I think it's helped me understand sort of the psychological processes that go on with an individual when they're unemployed. You know, the challenge in getting people motivated to realize their strengths and their gifts so that they can go out and present themselves as strong candidates for a job.
Now, do you have some of your students, people who've been let go from their jobs or lost their jobs or can't find employment, and so they come to you sort of to start a new career?
There's a percentage of our students that are seeking retraining that I have just this semester alone, a handful of men and women who were laid off from manufacturing, from private sector work, and have decided after many, many years that they want to do something else. And so some students who have said, I really always wanted to be a social worker. And so they're coming back to do that.
Now, is there employment available for them?
There is. There's employment with the associate's degree alone. There's entry-level employment, what we might refer to as social service assistants. We also have several certificates under our associate degree, therapeutic recreation, a lot of employment in working with elders in therapeutic recreation.
So if
capacity.
a student comes here and gets a degree from you and the rest of us, what kind of salary can they look at?
Well, with an associate's degree, it's not a high salary. I'd say between 30, 35, 20 to 35, depending on whether or not they're working for the state or whether or not they're working in the private sector.
And with a bachelor's degree?
With a bachelor's degree, it goes up. With every advanced degree, with a bachelor's degree, it would be potentially in the 40s. Once you start talking master's degree, it's even higher than that. So I always push, the more education, the better.
So describe a little bit the students you have on their very first day. They're sitting there terrified because Professor Judith Felton is going to come in. Describe them a little bit. And I'm kidding when I say terrified.
Well, there's a mixture. I do have a percentage of students who are younger students coming directly from high school, and they're taking the Intro to Human Services class, for instance, as their first stepping stone class. Their questions are going to be about how long will it take me to get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. I'm going to ask them questions about what brings them here, why are they here, why human services. They're going to...
Do they have, most of them, basic skills in English and math and that kind of thing?
In the Intro to Human Services class, it's going to be mixed. Some of them are taking some of the developmental courses, and so they're taking the intro course while they're also taking some remedial coursework. Others have placed college writing and math and are well on their way. I also have older students, again, who are coming back for retraining, or sometimes I also have a percentage of students who are women who have been home for a while and raising their children and have finally, it's now their turn, and they might be going to school with their son or daughter here also.
Oh, wow.
Which is very nice.
That's
I've had
neat.
students who graduate at the same time with their sons and daughters, which has been really exciting.
So on day one, they really don't quite know what to expect.
They're exploring, and they
Yeah.
also are really exploring what field of helping do I want. Do I want to be a counselor? Do I want to be a community organizer? Do I want to be an advocate? There's so many branches. Do I want to focus on at-risk youth? Do I want to focus on elders?
So when they've been in your class for 2 or 3 months, if you
Mhm.
ask them, what's their biggest surprise?
I think their biggest surprise is that they've decided to work with a population that they thought they wouldn't want to work with. You know, we bring in all kinds of practitioners from the field to talk about what they do. And so I might have someone at the very beginning say, oh, I never want to work with old people, meaning, you know, they're looking
People
right
my
at
age.
me. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I never want to work with old people. And yet then they'll hear somebody who works with older adults in hospice, for instance, and then they'll say, oh, I really want to do that. So that's really the neat thing for me, is to hear when there's been a change of heart, because that means I've done my job in exposing them to the breadth of human services, and it is so broad.
And do you have some students who just say, well, thank you very much, I'll take my B, but this is not for me, and they go on to something else?
Occasionally, but not very often, not very often. Sometimes I'll have students who, for instance, I have students who are really interested in maybe the visual arts or communication, and I'll say, why not take your desire to help let's do kind of a dual major. Take your desire to help to the BC program and think about how you can communicate about the needs of the mentally ill and raise public awareness about the needs of at-risk youth. And so you're combining your interest in communications with your interest in
And how
helping.
many people would you have in the class that we're talking about, this
Oh,
intro class?
The intro class, around 30 usually on an average semester.
So 30, I mean, it's not 300. You
No.
obviously know them personally,
Yes,
I would
yes.
assume.
I think that's something I'm very proud of in our program, that we know the students personally. And then remember, they have 2 internships they have to complete before they graduate. So by the end of those 2 internships, I know them
You
very
really
well.
know them.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening right now, can they just call you up and come talk to you and
Absolutely.
about this kind of
Yeah.
what a future might be at Middlesex
Absolutely.
Community College with
Absolutely.
you? So the name is
Judith Felton.
Professor Judith Felton. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, and we'll be back momentarily. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Professor Judith Felton, who is a senior professor at Middlesex Community College, and we've been talking about human services and psychology. If someone is interested in human services, why would they go to a community college to get going?
One of my first responses to that would be that our community college in the Human Services program offers these internship and service learning experiences that I think are unique to what a community college can do. We have incredible partnerships with community-based agencies, agencies such as the Connection Incorporated, the United Way, St. Vincent de Paul Place, agencies that take interns, provide excellent supervision of them, provide training and education around what it means to work in the community. And therefore, our students, unlike perhaps a student graduating going directly to a 4-year college, our students have internship experience under their belt, which makes them more employable. And I think that's something unique to what our community college does.
How would they do the internship in the first year, the second year, both?
Typically not before the second semester, and I like to encourage them to wait until their second year, where they've had more theory courses under their belt and more courses like counseling and group work, where they're learning intervention skills.
Now, do they have to go and look for the internships, or do you find them for them?
Well, I give them a list. I have a list of about 150 agencies that
Wow.
they can choose from in Middlesex County, the Shoreline, Meriden, Wallingford area. I even have students who have done internships in Rhode Island before. They've come to me with that request. I haven't volunteered that.
Right.
So I give them a list, and then they go out and they contact someone and approach it much like you would a job interview. I'm, Joe Smith, and I'm a student in the Human Services program, and I'd like to come and do an interview for an internship. They prepare
Do
a
they
resume.
get paid for these?
Not typically. In some cases, they do get paid. them.
And presumably they have to do some writing and
They have to do
reporting
writing. We do
Yeah.
regular online discussion boards. They have to keep a journal. And there's a formal learning agreement between the college and the agency. So it's all...
What's in it for the agency?
Well, what's in it for the agency is that they get some assistance that they might not otherwise get. That's one thing that's in it for the agency. The other thing is that I find that people who supervise our interns really love it because it provides an opportunity for them to sort of teach, provides an opportunity
Yeah.
for them to show off what they think is great about their agency. And there's something about mentoring a
And
younger
someone to
person.
talk to.
And someone to talk to.
Yeah.
And there's something about mentoring a younger person who wants to do what you do, which is very rewarding and flattering.
Now, I know that with one of the agencies, you've cooperated, I think, with someone in the English department, and you're coming up with a book, aren't you?
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
We've collaborated. We're working with St. Vincent de Paul here in Middletown on a book called Soup Stories. And we're really
This is
excited
not
about
soup
this.
recipes.
These are not recipes,
Right.
no. These are
Okay.
stories of the guests who visit the soup kitchen. And the soup kitchen has been defined as the best dining experience in town by some of the guests who frequent the place. This
I assume you take the names off.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's all,
yeah.
though these people have signed releases, but it's still all confidential. And so last spring, my counseling students hung out at the soup kitchen for the semester, and we slowly began to identify people who were willing to tell their story. And we developed interview questions. And then English students, or writing students, went with the counseling students to interview the guests. And then the writing student wrote the interviews up. And then at the same time, we had a photography student taking pictures. We have an art student who's done incredible drawings from these photographs that have taken place. And I've been working with faculty from the English department and graphic design department to pull this together. It's going to be a remarkable thing.
What would be the most unusual story? Do you remember?
Well, one that really comes to mind for me that I think was really provocative for our students. You know, there's a lot of stereotypes about people who go to soup kitchens. And time and time again, our students were, for lack of a better phrase, blown away by the fact that the people who were visiting the soup kitchen were not that different from them. They were people down on their luck. And one woman has, that they interviewed, has a graduate degree in social work, or had a graduate degree in social work. She's since passed away. That was really interesting to my students who, you know, thought maybe people who go to soup kitchens aren't educated, maybe people who go to soup kitchens, you know, don't really care about anything. And here they came across a woman who had a graduate degree and children and had just fallen on hard times, and that's why she needed to visit the soup kitchen. They met families, you know, who at one time had been doing well, but because of the economy were really down on their luck, and they were bringing their children to the soup kitchen for meals. And
We're
so,
talking obviously about the soup kitchen in Middletown.
in Middletown.
How many people does it serve? Do you happen to know?
I wish I had that statistic at my fingertips. I think on any given day they might serve about 50 people at least, if not more.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah,
And
it's a lot of
presumably when
people.
it's cold in winter,
It's more
it's
people
worse.
when it's cold.
So
We
you've
also
been-
have students placed at the soup kitchen on the shoreline, and that's, you know, sometimes we forget that people on the shoreline are also poor and hungry.
Oh, even the small towns
Yes,
have
exactly.
poor
So that's
people.
been another good experience for our
So
students.
you've been teaching at the community college for how long?
Well, I believe I'm coming up on my 18th year. Yeah.
So how is teaching at a community college different from what it would be, say, at Fitchburg State or at Boston University?
I think the connection with the community is one of the things that really highlights this position. That we are so involved in our community. I think we know our community, and I'm not just speaking for me. I think all of your faculty and staff. We're really connected with our community, and the community knows that we're here. One of the things that I hear all the times when I get a call from, an agency downtown looking for students to help, is that our students stay here. We have a Human Services Student Association of students who are constantly doing food drives and clothing drives along with other clubs on campus. And so I think that makes teaching at the community college unique. Plus we get such a diverse group of students. We get the student who's been homeschooled and comes to us at age 15 and 16 years old, and then a couple of years ago I had a student who was in his 70s and just he took a 1-credit interviewing course with me and had been a journalist and just wanted to do it, and that was really fun.
So if someone is listening to us and they are employed, they do have a job, can they start your program part-time or in the evenings or
Absolutely.
online or whatever?
Absolutely. All three of those. Most of our students are part-time. And so it takes them might take them a few years to complete. But we have courses that are during the day, on Saturdays, in the evening, and a lot of online courses, both here at Middletown campus and in the Meriden campus. They can get almost their full degree at both campuses if they choose to.
Now, I know you've been very heavily involved in the strategic planning for the college. You're co-chair of the strategic planning, I can't even say it, strategic planning committee. How is the college going to be different in 5 years? Assume the recession eventually goes away in 5 or even 10 years. How is the college going to be different?
I think we're no longer going to be the best kept secret in town. I think that more people are going to know about us. I think that we're going to be able to help students become leaders so that they also become champions and ambassadors of the college. I think we're going to see enrollment growth. I'm hoping that we'll have a stronger mix of credit and credit-free programs so that we'll be a place that people see as open all the time.
Do you think people will come here, maybe they already do, as a first choice, even people who can get into UConn or
I hope they see us
CSU,
as a
yeah.
first choice. I think many people already see us as a first choice, and I don't think we're a secret. I think a lot of people really do know about us. I think if we can get students more involved in telling their story out in the community, that we can become the first choice. We're affordable, we're accessible, we have small classes, we have really great, most of our students get great individualized attention. And why wouldn't we be the first choice?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I think so. All my children
Community
went
college
to
was my
community.
first choice, so years and years and years ago.
In California?
I started out at Orange
I
Coast
didn't know
Community
that.
College.
Which
Well, first
one?
of all, at Pasadena Community College,
Uh-huh.
then at Orange Coast Community College, and then came back here and went to Mount Wachusett Community College in Massachusetts, which I later had my first teaching gig at, so that was fun.
And how are they different, or your memories of it different from what you see here at Middlesex?
If my memory serves me correctly, I think the experience I had at the community college, especially in Orange County, is very similar to what students get here. I remember having relationships with faculty, which our students have. I remember having the opportunity to go to classes at any time of day or evening. They didn't have online then. But I think the experience that I had is very similar to what our students get, which is great education and great attention
There are a couple
and
of things.
advising.
Yeah, there's a couple of things you haven't mentioned. One is that we don't have teaching assistants in community colleges.
That's
you
true.
You get a real professor
That's
when
exactly right.
when you walk in the door.
And it's really funny that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's funny that you mentioned that, because just the other day when I was out doing a run or something, I thought that's one real advantage to the community college, is that you get your faculty member and there are no TAs.
Yeah, and obviously low cost.
Yeah.
So we should repeat that anyone who is even remotely interested can get in touch with you by calling the college, emailing you at
Felton at MxCC.comnet.edu.
Yeah, you know it by heart. And or they can call you or whatever. I wouldn't just wander in without an appointment, but you might be teaching. But certainly professors here are really open to talking with members of the community. And
Absolutely.
if someone comes in and they have a nice conversation and they don't even apply, that's okay.
That's okay too.
Yeah,
and any one of the faculty here can advise about any one of the programs. I mean, we're very cross-disciplinary that way.
So you know all about engineering and math.
Well, I might not be able to do engineering, but I know who to send the student to.
Well, that's the important
Referral.
thing. I've been talking with Professor Judith Felton, who's one of the very senior professors here at Middlesex Community College. This has been Middlesex Moment. Take a look at our website, mxcc.comnet with 2 M's, comnet.edu. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College. Have a good day.